Joe, thanks for doing this. I've been really looking forward to this one. You have one of the most interesting careers in unscripted at the moment. You've worked across some of the biggest entertainment formats on TV, the Traitors, the US and UK versions, and the huge scale of 007 Road to a Million. You've also moved between development and production at places like BBC Studios, Tiger Aspect, and Fremantle, which gives you a really rare view of how these shows are built, sold, and delivered. What I really want to get into today is how you think about story in these massive environments. The Traitors in particular has become a proper cultural moment, not just another shiny floor format. And you have been right in the middle of that. So I want to talk about why it works, what people get wrong about unscripted, and why you think the next wave, where you think the next wave of ideas is going. So anyway, let's start at the beginning. You've worked on some of the biggest reality entertainment formats around, from the Traitors, from Traitors to 007 Road to a Million. How did you first find your way into this world of big, glossy competition shows?
So I started out I started out 25 years ago. I came down from Yorkshire, I'd been to uni, came to London, and obviously at the time, entertainment TV was sort of having a great moment. It was exploding. I was really lucky to get involved in the early series of Big Brother, which was just so much fun to be a part of that format when it's just started. So the first series had gone on. I actually joined when they did the first celebrity series as a production runner, which is the one that Jack D went on to win. So one of my very first jobs in TV, like 2 weeks in, Jack D had escaped from the Big Brother house, and my job was to run around the car park in Elstree in the middle of the night to try and find him, to convince him to go back into the house, because we had a show to make, and about 16 million people used to watch those shows. So just one of those weird moments. And then from there, I went on to work on shows like Coach Trips, So You Think You Can Dance, Dating in the Dark, Street Mates. And I sort of then went on to work in development as well. So I sort of have this weird kind of job now where I have two different hats that I can wear. I can either I spend half my time working in production, get to make the shows, or the other half of the time working in development, where you're trying to come up with the next show and trying to get that away and commission.
You've jumped between development and production across major houses at BBC Studios, Tiger Aspect, and Fremantle. How has that mix shaped the way you approach a project? I mean, they're very, just to explain to people how different, I mean, they're pretty different organizations. I mean, obviously you've got the BBC, which is not a commercial entity, but is.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you've got, what's the difference, for example, between that? I mean, can you explain some of those?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I suppose just to step back slightly, sort of, it's not that I'm unique in this, but I work in sort of production and development, which isn't, many amazing people work in just one or the other.
It's normally very separated.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some crossover, and people, but I suppose I'm slightly, I don't know if it's unique or almost kind of a jack of all trades, in that I try and do both in a kind of 50-50 setup, if that makes sense. Whereas by and large, most people are definitely more predominantly one than they are the other. Yes. And there's a reason for that, in that production is a really hard job, but it's really amazingly it's fun and exciting, and you work as a team towards a clear goal, which is finishing the program and getting it out there. Whereas development, as you know, the job, although it feels similar, is actually really different, because
completely different.
You're actually selling and trying to win commissions, and you're working on literally sometimes 10, 15, even 20 ideas at one point, with the hope that, things you're doing now will be coming out either next year or, in truth, probably the year after that. So, I'd done 10 years working on entertainment formats in production, and then I was actually working at Disney at the time, and they had a channel back then. They used to do a live show during the day, and my boss at the time was this guy called Steve Wynn, and he was like, "Oh, I think you'd really benefit from spending some time in development," which I just didn't want to do. Right? It looked boring. They all left at 6 o'clock. They didn't get to make anything. like sort of reluctantly agreed to do a couple of months in their development team and got into it and just like loved it. It was just amazing. Couldn't believe that you could sit around in a group and sort of have the time to go, what would be really exciting, and or what do you want to see the sort of landscape change to become, or create a new hit kind of thing. So yeah, that was like getting towards sort of into 2009, 2010, and ended up then working in the teams that went on to, like you say, joined the Thames team, which is part of Fremantle UK. It's the entertainment label. So they made X Factor, Family Fortunes, Britain's Got Talent, and ended up running that team of developers, kind of generate the next big Saturday night entertainment hit. From there, went to Tiger Aspect, which is a really different place because it's, although part of a big super indie that does make entertainment hits, Tiger Aspect make Peaky Blinders, they make Benidorm, and I joined on their comedy entertainment development team, who were making things like Murder in Successville and Drunk Histories and things like that. So that was really actually like an amazing time to learn a whole new sort of set of skills, really, because comedy is incredible, but it's very different to entertainment formats.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed working sort of side by side with a lot of these big drama teams, which I'd never seen before, and really was like just in awe of. And then, as you mentioned, went on to BBC Studios, which is obviously, it is a public broadcaster. Studios is the in-house department who make a lot of their shows. In 2017, 2018, they had sort of set up to become detached from the channel. And in that, for the first time, they were going to start making shows for not just the BBC, but for anyone else at other networks and streamers and things like that. So I joined so my old boss from Thames, a lady called Susie Lamb, she went in as the boss of entertainment at BBC Studios, and I went along and became her creative director for development to work out the strategy of what that department could do for different markets, and also go in and work, had to manage, I think it was at the time, 14 developers who were split across Manchester and Cardiff and London, who all had been working on different effectively actually been working solely on BBC projects, and going, right, what can we do? How do we take this skill set and the amazing shows that you guys make, and actually start going, right, we could win business for Netflix, for Disney Plus, for Darren's ITV, not an easy challenge to do, but at the same time quite an exciting opportunity to have been there at the beginning when that's set up, and it's now running really well, and Susie and that team are just sort of knocking it out of the park. So that's my development time. And then obviously, as I mentioned, having previously been in entertainment formats, when I left BBC Studios, which is at the end of the pandemic, sort of basically once everything I was there during COVID, but once everything had kind of mellowed out and gone back to normal, decided that I really fancied being back on the production side again, and so went back to being a freelancer. Worked again 50% in development on funded developments, and 50% of my time on productions. As a freelancer, I worked on, as you said, Traitors, which was a lot of fun, and also 007, Road to a Million for Amazon, and a new upcoming Channel 4 show should be out next year as well.
Amazing. Okay. So on storytelling and production, the Traitors has become a cultural phenomena. What do you think makes it connect so strongly with audiences? Why has it worked?
Sorry, why has it worked? I mean, Traitors is incredible. It's just the most fun, amazing show. I think we're all of us who've worked on it are just so grateful to be a part of it. It's really, really hard to work out why it's worked, and that's probably a great thing. Because otherwise, it'd just be copy and paste, and it would be very boring for us all in development. I personally, as someone who's been on the project, but as a freelancer who joined the company, Studio Lambert, who make it, I think its success is that the intensity of the game that the players are playing is very real. It's genuine. It's totally real, and that's what the viewers see. So it's like very much a case of what you're watching is the experience that those players went through. Now, obviously, that's down to a phenomenal format that was originally created by the Dutch. There was a company called IDTV, and Mark Poss created it originally. And then obviously, again, the production is beautifully done for the UK and US version, that's Studio Lambert. Internationally, it's obviously lots of different indies. But to be fair to them, they've all done it brilliantly. Like, I love to watch, as a fan, the New Zealand version, the Australian version.
Oh, wow.
The Irish, like they're just great, and that's down to the format. For me, that format is great because of the intensity. But it was interesting. I think it is really hard to properly work out why. Yes. And a part of it is it's one of those aligning of the stars of the kind of right idea, right time. And the audience just took it, and it's just an amazing success story, really. Amazing.
It's such joy to be on something like that. Yeah, it's such a great experience. Okay, so you've worked on both the UK and US versions. What's been the most surprising difference between the two in tone casting? So casting or audience reaction.
Sorry, yeah, this is a question I emailed you about, because in truth, I don't know.
Was that the one we spoke about? Well,
yeah, no, apologies.
My mistake.
It's one of those things, and again, it's so good, I couldn't draw a difference between them. Like, from my position, there isn't. But
fine, we'll move on. My mistake. I remember that now. Let me do this, so I remember where to edit it. I'm sure I'll find a more professional way of doing it in the future, but hands and waving is the one at the moment. Okay, so you have shot in some dramatic locations, from Scottish castles to global 007 challenges. What has been the toughest environment you've had to produce in?
I mean, I personally just love filming on location. Like, it's like, it's nuts that this is the job that we have, and you get to go to these incredible places or just see corners of the earth that you just otherwise wouldn't have gone to. I would say, every location throws up its challenges. In terms of toughest in certainly recent times was, for me, on the 007 series. So I joined the production for season 2, and we were all incredibly excited because we were going to get to go to Mexico to film in Mexico City for Day of the Dead. Now, obviously, if you've seen the Bond film, Inspector, that's just the most amazing scene. And
it's so cinematic. I remember seeing which one was it? Skyfall.
So Mexico's Inspector, but I believe
the 007, the actual film. I think I remember seeing how they were making it as well. It's right. I mean, it's so cool. He looks really cool in it as well.
Exactly. And so, this has been something that the production company, 72 Films, along with Eon and MGM Studios, who are all making the show, to get permission to be in the parade of Day of the Dead in Mexico City had been years in the making, right? So it was all this like excitement. We couldn't quite believe we were going. At the same time, Day of the Dead parade in Mexico City is a huge thing, like, it's massive. They are not going to stop or come a day early or help.
No. Yeah, you've got to work around them.
Yeah, so you're going into this massive moment that the team have spent years getting excited about. Wow. Going, right, we're going to do this challenge. We've got no rehearsal other than what we think might happen. We've got no control about what's going on in Mexico City. We don't know if phones are going to work. We don't know.
The the worst possible minds scenarios for producers on any level. No control, full stop, working in a completely fluid environment, and nobody cares about your situation or that shot needs to be like this at all.
Exactly. And we just have to basically have this sort of on this powwow just before going, listen, as long as the camera's turning over, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Right. We have to accept the chaos here. And that's what I love about non-scripted in these formats is the magic will happen is the part that you can't plan for. You just got to be prepared. Admittedly, that scenario you do not want to do every day. Like you would, you'd be burnt out pretty quickly by the end of the week. But as a one-off, it was just like incredible. So yeah, a lot of fun.
And just talk us through the day. We talk about sort of unscripted, so what time are you starting? How many people were involved? For example, like I can just imagine, what was the scenario? And then did you actually get there? And what were the fails and what were the wins that you weren't expecting?
So the scenario was we had it's towards the end of the season. It's down to 4 pairs who are competing, and for that episode we paired the competitors up. So there's 2 teams of 4, and we're up. I think our call time's like 4:30 in the morning or something like that. Like we
and you hadn't slept the night before probably because it's so exciting and there's so much going on. So you've got that no time, and then you're just sort of in it.
This is it. Yeah, you're just like, this is once in a lifetime. I don't need sleep. Like writing drink water down your arms because otherwise you're not going to remember to do it. And we had these 2 teams who were going to compete. We had set them this challenge that one half of the team were working in this old derelict building in the middle of town, having to find the puzzles of clues that will tell the other half of their team which float to find in the parade. So you've got one unit which has got this game going on. They've got the other half of that unit positioned at different points down the parade. Now, the way we filmed 007 is they're basically running a kind of time. Most of the challenges are like a time trial. So what we would actually do is we'd put one team on ice, put them somewhere where they didn't know what was happening, and they would sort of be held as paused, as it were. So you film one team doing the challenge, and then you ice them, and you bring the others out, and you do the same thing again. But obviously, this parade is not at all a fair playing field. It's all over the place. So the bit of the challenge that's actually been timed is the bit that's in this building that's separate, which is a puzzle to work out which float to find. And then the team who are finding the float, that's actually, they are racing to find it, but we can't time that bit because it's going to be different distances.
But it's really sensible because you've managed to find a safe space to do something that you can control. And then the chaos around. I mean, I'm surprised you didn't time it wasn't agreed to time through the thing, because that's the thing, isn't it? Because you're in the event and you want to imagine that, you're just unlucky sometimes because you can't get there because it isn't fair.
Exactly. And actually, the way the challenge works is they find the float, they then leave the parade and they would go off onto to find something else they had to get. They had to find a burner boat. It was in a set place. That element, once they'd found that float, then they were on the clock, because from there on in, it was a set position for both teams. And in challenge producing, I often have to explain to people, our roles is often almost like being the kind of referee and linesman in these situations, because we have set the parameters of a challenge to someone, and we have to be genuine and go, look, you're being judged fairly. So if you win, then great. But if you've lost, that's on you. It's not because I didn't start the clock in time, or you gave you an unfair advantage or disadvantage or anything like that. So that was a really incredible shoot. But the issue on the day was we had points along the parade where the teams could enter the parade to find their float. We knew the order of the floats. We had spotters, but the speed, the distance, that's out of our control. The first team who were released into the parade their float had gone, like it just gone. And I'm in the main building with the other ones going, they've solved the puzzle, like go for it. I get word back going, like we can't see it. So that team on the ground are then just running through the Day of the Dead parade in Mexico until they get eyes on the float, and then they find it, and then they can move on and they can carry on with the next part of the challenge. But you're just wondering, like, part of you's going, if that first float goes past where the next team are due to enter the parade, then the next challenge isn't going to work, and all this kind of just, a brilliant element of chaos that thankfully is great. And if you watch it, it's beautifully done. Like it really feels like, you could. I don't think we'll ever get to do a challenge like that again. Basically, like it's really, really unique, and I think that's partly obviously because the joy of working on 007 is it's such a strong brand, and that's such a famous theme. So to have real people be able to like face a challenge in that environment was like, it was a gift.
When it comes to balancing story and spectacle, how do you decide when to lean into emotion rather than pure entertainment? It's an interesting one, that.
Yeah. So so I would say this might sound really odd, right? But like personally, I would always start by focusing on story, right? Spectacle is an amazing part of TV, but in formats it kind of comes second, and it is often the bit that the viewers remember the most. But if your format that is basically the challenge, the competition, the bigger kind of story arc, as it were, if that isn't drawing you in without any spectacle, then it's not going to work. You buy maybe 2 or 3 minutes of people being in awe, but then they'll just tail off and turn over. But like, so when you're developing, for example, quiz shows is a really great example of how that kind of plays out, because you start all great quiz shows and game shows, they just start in an office boardroom with a group playing it, used with post-it notes or a very small version of what it is that then ends up being the big scaled, amazing sort of element that you see on TV. So not that I worked on it, but if you take, I don't know if you remember the game show The Wall, for example. So Danny Dye used to host it, Saturday nights, BBC One.
Okay.
Absolutely massive machine in the studio, like the biggest, tallest studio you've ever seen. God knows how expensive, big set, where you answer a question and then these balls drop down this machine and land in a prize pot, in a bucket, as it were. Now, you and I could play that right now, probably over Zoom, and I will use something that's the size of an A4 paper, and you will lean in to see where that ball lands just as much on a small, cheap £5 as you will on the the multi-million-pound version. Obviously, the end product needs to have the multi-million-pound version,
prizes and things like that.
Yeah, but if the magic hadn't existed, it couldn't exist in a form that can be done in an office, then it's just not going to land. And that's from the time when I'm in development, that's what you're always looking for. It's like, what happens? What can we talk about now that is going to make you lean in, want to hear more, be more excited? I mean, this is a lovely sort of a good example. I'm a big fan of What I Lie to You, the comedy show. Like, I hope I don't mean any disrespect. I don't think the spectacle on that show is particularly big, right? But obviously, incredible talent and a great format, which is simply, is Bob Mortimer lying to you?
Yes.
Or not? Is gripping. Like, you really want to know the reveal at the end. It's amazing. So on that balance, I think entertainment TV supplies a lot of spectacle. We love our shimmer walls and Strictly and things like that, but the starting point has to be about that story, or that format needs to be able to generate that story alone, basically.
I think it's Next question. You have run huge complex productions with cast, crew, and contestants under pressure. How do you keep the creative energy alive when fatigue sets in? And also on that point, give us an example of, like, is there an average, there's in your world, there's an average time of shoots traditionally, or is it, is it this, and what is there, where's the ebbs and flows? You must be like very accustomed to it. And how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, so every sort of project is different. In truth, there's obviously there are similarities, but on 007, for example, a lot of the times the challenge, the team that I was running, there was like 3 of us, whereas on other shows, or even in development teams, it can be much bigger than that. Back in the day when I would be a series produced coach trip originally, when it started out, and we were making that show for a very, very small budget, and I was running a team and a group of contestants traveling through different cities every day, like that, keeping across that, it is obviously the job. Like that is, that's you've got, your head is thinking about the creativity in the story, but ultimately, all you actually need to do is empower all these people that you're with. Yes. And that will happen automatically. And there's the occasional steering of, oh, no, maybe not that way, maybe go a bit more this way. But actually, if that team can run to the strengths that they have, then it's easy streets. You're going to have a great time, and it's going to be a really, really good show. There are obviously slight minor differences in development teams to production, but maybe not, in fact. But the sort of, if I had a trick, as it were, or I hope I'm sort of known, at least like my teams enjoy, is that I'm pretty guilty of making them do pub quizzes. So, and how I do that is not by making them go to the pub, but is often I put like pub quiz or like quizzes on PowerPoints, and I can sort of send them round. If I'm feeling like, you've got to remember, this is not an easy job, it's an amazing job, but you've got to keep your energy levels up. You've got to keep sort of feeling fresh. So I will try and sort of keep people like feeling appreciated, or at least like enjoying it. So on a recent job where we had sort of multiple teams in different locations, on the last hardest week, I sent them all a box where I had debranded different packets of crisps into sort of clear bags, and I synced all the teams up, and we all did a very simple 5 minutes, what flavour crisp is this challenge? And obviously, that is such a small moment in the day, and it took me an evening at home bagging up different flavours of crisp, but I'm hoping at least it made those teams have like a moment of like, oh yeah, this is kind of worth it. And like, we're in this together, and a little break from the bigger, slightly difficult job that we're doing to kind of move on. So yeah, that's my
and just on that point, like how, and I completely agree with you. I think on the food point generally, making sure catering's really, really good. The unsung heroes of every shoot. People don't understand how important that is. I'm glad it's changed a lot, because it used to just be insane with the treats in the afternoon. You need that 4 or 5 upper hit of sugar. And now I'm like the opposite of that. I don't want any of that stuff, but I kind of do. But when you're younger, you're just like, I was like, oh, you're caning all of the stuff. But I think that's really important, because it's running a team, it's running an army at some points, isn't it? You've got to feed them. Just in terms of timeline, so how is it 6 weeks on a production, say for example, a big, small, on an entertainment series where you're moving around, how does it work? In advertising, you've got, it's literally like you do 1 day, 2 days, 6 days, whatever, but that's a lot. And obviously it's completely different with dramas, but also entertainment TV. So give us an idea of that.
So sort of like, more times than not, it would be, I would say, 6 weeks plus pre-production period, but the team will start in a sort of staggered formation. So the sort of senior team might start earlier with 1 or 2 junior members. Nearer to the point of the shoot, everyone's on board for like that last week or two to kind of get their head around what you're going to do. Obviously, most shoots I do, it's at least kind of 6 weeks, if not 3 months. So it's not uncommon to do 4 or 5 months prep. If you're, depending on how you're looking to film it, but if it's on location, then you definitely need that time. And as I say, you also it depends on the situation with the network. That what has been already agreed with the channel about what you're doing, or are you in pre-production genuinely pitching to them the challenges, the twists, the concepts? Obviously, and aside from that, the casting team are also pitching in with who the contributors are going to be. So yeah, that I would say for a big time challenge show or reality competition, you definitely kind of 4-month kind of prep. There are versions of that where the budget dictates that it's smaller. There are versions of that where it is longer. But yeah, you definitely need to be organised. And that will be, it's a classic kind of, you have to believe that. Weirdly, the prep will actually often be harder than the shoot itself, because you are just genuinely trying to make sure everything's ready and everyone's aware of what's going to happen. Getting yourself together before you head off. Yeah,
the more prep, the better. In production, there's only so much you can do, but yeah, it is the only way. Okay, so has there been a moment where you on set where you thought we were in trouble here and somehow turned it around? Any funny moment? Any fun? I mean, there's always challenges. Trouble's a strong word, but I don't know about you, but it always seems to work out in the end. It's never not worked out. I keep saying to mates, when they're having a bad time, like, it's going to work out. It will somehow. We'll get to the end, and no one will know, or they will, but it'll be fine.
Exactly, and often that change ends up being something which you can't control, which weirdly ends up making it better.
Yes.
And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we always meant to do that." But
yes.
Like, well, no, genuinely, I can go back to emails and show that wasn't the case. But yeah, you're right. It's very much like the joy of the job is being on location and sort of where things are going either wrong or just not the way you planned. How do you adapt to that? I mean, there isn't a show, I don't think, where there wasn't something that came up. On the 007 series, for example, in one of our very first challenges, we were going to Thailand, and we knew we had this idea for a challenge with scorpions. So our animal handler had come out, and they were sourcing scorpions locally in Thailand. And we were going to use the boat, or we did use the boat at the end of Man with the Golden Gun. Roger Moore sails off into the distance on Scaramanga's sort of boat. So we were like, great, it's amazing. We've got the boat. We've got a couple of days. We're getting the scorpions. We've got a couple of days to like nail the challenge, get on board, work it all out, get to Phuket, go up to the harbour. Captain of the boat's like, we've got 2 hours, and then I'm off on another job. And I'll be back for your shoot day. And it's like, okay, but we're just going to bring all this stuff in and sort it out. So it's like, fuck, okay. Jump on board, all of us just measuring, taking photographs, working out what the room is. Go back to our hotel in Phuket and say, it's all right if we just use a conference room and just bring in about 200 scorpions, because we just need to work out this challenge. They were surprisingly fine with it. So then we just marked out in the room on the floor of the room the exact dimensions of the space we were going to be on the boat. Art department sort of brought in tables and all the tanks that we were going to use for the scorpions. Animal handler brings in 200 scorpions in individual containers. And we spent 2 days in this hotel grabbing people to test our game and check it out and perfect it, so that when the boat did come back from its scuba job that it had done, which was fair play to them, that's their business. We were ready to go, and it was all fine. But it was one of those moments where you stood in the hotel going, "God, this could go either way."
Also just the idea of having 200 scorpions. It sounds like the most obvious thing that something's going to go wrong. The potential is huge. But I think it's really interesting. You just saying, and then we physically marked out on the floor the size of the boat. I mean, because that's what you have to do all the time, you know, and how are we going to film it? How's it going to look? What are the angles? Where's the camera going to go? Because if the camera can't get anywhere, then, you know, and there's all those discussions, what looks good, what doesn't, you know, I mean, it's endless, but yeah, no, that's great. That's a
I
really
do think,
good skill.
I mean, I really felt for the DOP because obviously we got to do all our bit. The one thing he couldn't do was know what lighting was going to be.
Yeah.
So he had, of all of us, he got to do the recce and do as much as he could. But then that morning of that shoot, he had to run in and get it set because that's the one element that we didn't have. But yeah, it was still fun, and it ended up being the opening challenge that we used. So clearly, it kind of worked.
Yeah, and also if you're going to be in Thailand and on a boat with 200 squad, I mean, it's pretty spectacular, isn't it? And the locations are amazing. I always remember getting the script. It was my favorite. It was my favorite script receival. I don't know that the script came in for an advert, and it was like, we open on a beach in Thailand, and there is an elephant walking across the beach, and I'm like, this is the best thing ever. You know, waking up in the morning, going to work, and seeing that first thing, you're like, that's it. It's the best thing. It was for the Thai tourist board, and I was like, life is good. Life is good. So, and this is why I'm not. Yeah, is that you realize why you're enjoying yourself. Okay, so on to the next one. As someone who has been a creative director of development, what has changed most about how shows are commissioned and sold today? I think this is quite an interesting one because there's so much change at the moment. And are you seeing it?
Yeah, there is a lot of change. I think probably a difficult bit to get into would be the TV industry is going through a really difficult period of change at the moment. That is, for many factors, has affected it. I think just to look at it from a development perspective, there has been, I personally feel, a loss of like the opportunity to grow an idea. Like we as the UK TV industry was really, and is really, really good at coming up with ideas for entertainment formats. And there was a lot of times where that show could start in a smaller slot, quite safe, grow, you get the language right, you know, you'd sort out all the beats, and then also the audience would grow with it, and then it would be elevated and become bigger. That is trickier to do now, I guess in truth, partly because the way that people consume television is there's a feeling that things need to be a hit from the off, and so a lot of current new shows are actually ones that have internationally already been on. That isn't new. We often imported, taken other formats, which are brilliant. But we've lost our own little protective nursery slope, as it were. But that's what I personally feel like it's harder to do that now. In fact, the better examples of it are actually what creators are doing on YouTube. So if you look at, it's obviously they are huge, but if you look at what the Sidemen have done with their entertainment shows called Inside, they just did that themselves on YouTube, and then it became a Netflix show, and now they make it, for one of the world's biggest streamers. That's obviously genius of them and a great way to do it. But when you're developing formats now, the opportunities are harder to get. I mean, I would say there's a lot of commissioners who are trying really, really hard to make that happen. But it's definitely, it's trickier to punch through, and you've got to really make your titles feel as if they're going to stand out and work. It would be definitely how it feels at the moment.
Next one, most underrated creative in TV right now.
I mean, that is a tricky one. I wouldn't say she's underrated, but in the challenge world, for me, there's a producer called Hannah Gagnon, who I just think is incredible. So she just co-exec the new season of Fear Factor that will be out on Fox in the new year. And she's games galore. And when it comes to creativity, she's just brilliant and amazing. And occasionally I get to work with her, which makes me look great, because then those projects are amazing. From a development perspective, so obviously the other side of my job, there's a developer called Joe McVeigh, who I'm a huge fan of. these ideas are quite dark, they're quite comedic, but they're really, like you talk about, that originality. He'll come into the meeting and go, "What about this idea?" And you go, "No, Joe, like that. Oh my God, no, you can't make that." And then he just sit there quietly, and he knows you'll come around going, "Okay, well, how will we make it then?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's good, isn't it?" And you're like, okay, yeah, it is good. So those two are definitely, I think, stars who I love working with.
Oh, exciting. That's great. Okay, and dream location you would love to shoot in tomorrow, right? Where we're gonna, best place ever, what would you want to do? Anywhere that you haven't been, or something you want to go to again?
I mean, I love going on location. I've always dreamed to go to Japan. Never been, fascinated. I have landed in the airport to get a connecting flight and sort of press my face against the window going, "Oh my God, it's there." So I would absolutely love to go. But in truth, just genuinely, really, really, all locations. And really enjoy filming in the UK as well, because it's corners you find yourself in that you just wouldn't probably be going to otherwise, which is the joy.
Okay. One word to describe what makes a brilliant producer.
So my answer, so boringly, for me, one word is organization.
Yeah.
Like I know some incredibly creative people who, and I mean this in the nicest way, they have not been as successful as they should have been because they're not organized. And actually, it's ideas are genuine. Weirdly, ideas are quite easy to have. You can do that. If you are not organized enough to take that idea and make it work and do all the boring bit in between, then you're actually not. There are people who are going to be better than you.
Very, very true. What is the next kind of show you would love to make that you have not yet?
So, I think I'm currently working on a lot of really exciting development projects, which obviously, when you're in the middle of that, those are the ones you want to make next, and trying to get out there with some really good formats. But I think, in addition to that, I'd really like to actually work or get some experience in the digital space, like we talked about. I think those creators are fascinating. I think their skill set is unique but slightly different to what we do in linear TV, and there's a really exciting potential to kind of join up and make those work. So actually, and that's because I've got kids. They're more or as excited to watch the Beta Squad, say, as they are the shows that I work on or make, or Champion kind of thing. And actually, when you start watching those shows with them, you're like, "Oh yeah, this is good." Like, they're engaged, they're funny, they're creative, and they're very talented at working, at knowing who their audience is. So that would be the kind of space I'd like to get an opportunity in.
Excellent. All right, so Joe, this has been brilliant. Thank you for being so open and for taking us inside the reality world in a way most people never get to hear. The scale of the work you've done is huge, and it's clear how much craft goes into keeping these shows sharp, emotional, and genuinely entertaining. Really appreciate you coming on. And for anyone watching or listening, this episode is supported by 2.0 Films. We service commercial productions across Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Northern Italy, and Austria. If you ever need a fast numbers on a bid or a sharp location options, give me a shout.